Hey everyone, welcome to another BricksMembers tutorial. Today about the access control page, which as the name suggests, is about controlling the access of users to your website. And there are essentially two different ways. At first, it is by logged in or out status. So you usually want to keep logged out users away from certain parts of your websites, and you can control that here. And also, if you want to have a simple redirect functionality based on user levels, you also get that here. It's not recommended. It's better to use conditional logic in BricksBuilder, but we will get to that in a second. So let's get right into it. At first, when you enter the access control page, you have this box here, which is called logged out redirect settings. And what this box does is it essentially just makes all logged out users being redirected to the login page if you activate that checkbox here. And of course, you can define certain exception pages. Maybe you have some pages on your websites that you don't want to restrict to only logged in users. And now activating this checkbox here is super important, even if you want to restrict with user levels, because in order to be able to restrict content with user levels, you have to ensure that the user is logged in, because otherwise logic, BricksMembers, cannot know what user level a certain user has, because it needs to know what user is on the website currently, obviously. So it is important to turn that on here. And what's important to know is that all the standard WordPress login and reset password pages, etc., are by default excluded, which is important because otherwise you could log yourself out by activating this checkbox. And also the custom authentication pages that you can set in BricksBuilder. And this is what you can set here on the BricksBuilder settings. You even have a link there. So let's open that in a new tab. Here you see in BricksBuilder, you do have, when you scroll down, the custom authentication pages option, and there you can define the login page, registration, lost password, and reset password pages. And now those pages are automatically excluded as well. So whenever you don't want to use the standard WordPress login and whatever the user should do pages, but instead you want to use custom pages here, you can create them exactly the same way you would always do in BricksBuilder and just set them up here. You don't actually need any BricksMembers functionality for it because BricksBuilder handles that already. So you just set up your pages here in BricksBuilder as you would always do. Activate the checkbox, and it's all done. You don't have to do any other settings. BricksMembers automatically recognizes that you do have those pages set up in BricksBuilder, and it will automatically exclude those pages. So you don't have to do it manually here as well. Next up is then, of course, that when users are logged in to your website, they might still see some parts of the WordPress backend, especially the top bar of WordPress. I can show you that quickly here. When I deactivate all those user roles here and I go to the front end, you see that now you see this top bar here. Obviously, you don't want that. And so this is what you can control with this box here. You just select all the user roles that should not see this top bar, and then they don't see it anymore. Of course, generally you wouldn't really activate those for editor, author, and maybe contributor even. You would only select those for subscriber, student, or whatever you have there, and you see it's still not coming. But yeah, you can choose whatever WordPress user roles you want to ensure the top bar does not show up here. It's, by the way, also a good reason why you might want to set up a custom user role under settings and manage user roles here, because then you have one user role where you know for sure this user will not see any WordPress backend stuff. So yeah, that's another reason to do that. And then when you scroll down, you're coming to the general redirect and create new redirect rules cards. And this is different because here it's not about if the user is logged out or logged in anymore, but here it is actually about user levels. So what the general redirect does is it lets you define a page that every user that does not have access to a certain page based on BricksMembers user level is being redirected to. And now, to mention that directly, this is not the suggested way of using BricksMembers, because in BricksMembers you have the option, and that's basically the point of BricksMembers, to use conditional logic in Bricks Builder directly to conditionally show content to a user or not, depending on his user levels. And that's why you should only really use this general redirect rule here for very specific cases. Let's say you really have a client that you develop a membership site for, so that doesn't want to show any custom messages to users that don't have access or something like that, but that wants to keep it super simple by just redirecting them to a certain page. Then you can use that here. Otherwise, I would always suggest not doing that, not using this feature, because it is clearly inferior to using conditional logic, because then you can do so much more stuff. Like you can show a message to a user, hey, you don't have access to a course because you don't have the right user level or something like that, or you didn't purchase a course yet. And then you can give him a link directly to your shop so that he can purchase the course, which essentially means more revenue for you, right? And that's why the conditional logic part is actually more powerful and also allows you to make a lot more interesting membership sites. And this one here is more for like basic membership sites like people created 10 years ago or so. But yeah, you still have this functionality available here if you want to. And very similar is also the create new redirect rule box, which works together with the existing redirect rules here. And that essentially lets you define redirect rules for specific user levels. So now, for example, let's say I want to redirect all users that don't have the required level for Camera Basics course content to, who knows, let's say feed here, like that's kind of my homepage. So they would all be simply redirected to the homepage. Of course, it would be better to redirect them to a page that tells them, hey, you don't have access. But yeah, like this is like a bit better than general redirect, because then you can at least on the page that they are redirected to tell them why they don't have access to that content. So it's kind of a replacement for the conditional logic. And of course, we also have excluded posts here. Let's also just use feed as an example or whatever. Or I don't know, like Camera Basics. Do we have that here? Yeah, course page, for example. I could also exclude that. Create rule. And now you see here in the existing redirect rules, we have this rule here. You can also edit that if you want to or not. And yeah, there you see a list with all those rules that you have created. And then now whenever someone would visit, let's say a lesson from the Camera Basics course, he would directly be redirected to the feed page here that I set up. And of course, you could still access the general Camera Basics course page, maybe as a course overview or so. So these rules are essentially the same as general redirect, just a bit more targeted, because maybe you want to have a redirect only for a specific course where there isn't maybe not much to say, but you don't want it for other courses or other parts of content. That's, for example, also interesting. For example, let's say you sell courses on your membership site. Then maybe for courses, you want to use conditional logic, but then maybe you have other user levels that you want to use to restrict maybe some posts in your blog, for example. That could, for example, then make sense to redirect users completely to a different page where they can purchase access to a subscription to see some hidden content in your blog and something like that. And one more thing to mention here is that whenever you created such a rule here, you can also go to user levels and click on the user level that's affected. And then this rule will show up here under current redirect rule. So you always know directly on the user level page as well what rules you have set up for this user level. And yeah, if you click on the edit button, then it redirects you to the access control page, and there you can also like edit the rule then again. And yeah, that's all you have to know here about access control. You might also want to check out, if you haven't done yet, the content protection tutorial. I will link that here in the corner and also in the description if you haven't done yet. There you learn how you assign all the user levels as required levels to posts, terms, and pages, so that you can actually restrict your content either with the rules that we just got to know here on the access control page or with conditional logic in Bricks Builder.